What is this? And why is it proudly displayed in Lawrence Hill's Cleveland apartment? To answer those questions, you need to know a little more about Lawrence and the cultural awakening he experienced 2 decades ago.
I was in my 20s and I was at an exhibit called Out of Africa that was in the BP America building in downtown Cleveland. There was a large exhibit of Black memorabilia, vintage items, slave items, figural items that was put on by Dr. Hanif Wahab, who at the time was a very aggressive collector of Black memorabilia. And I was just fascinated by what I saw when I walked into the lobby of this prestigious downtown world headquarters to see all these Black faces of Aunt Jemimas and humidors and different other depictions, mostly negative, staring back at me.
That was nearly 20 years ago. Walking into Lawrence's apartment today is like walking back in time. His collection of Black artifacts is one of the most impressive you'll ever see. And it all started with one purchase.
In the shop, I was looking around and I opened up a drawer and I found an item which is called a stereo Opticon card. And this card depicts 2 pictures that are identical. And when you put it into this contraption called a stereo viewer, and you look at it properly, it turns into a 3D image when you put it to your face like that. And I remembered seeing one of these in that exhibit. So I asked the lady how much it was. I think it was $8 at the time. So I bought it. And I asked her, did she have any more items like that? And she told me, well, on occasion she gets things like that. So I would check back with her from time to time, and I bought more. And then before I knew it, I was going to house sales, antique shows, estate sales, yard sales, flea markets, and I was looking for it. I found that there was a name for it called Black memorabilia.
Black memorabilia, or Black collectibles as some people call them, was produced in the United States and abroad from the 1880s to the late 1950s. In most cases, the items were derogatory.
Well, in the 19th century, most African Americans were enslaved. In fact, it took the Civil War, 4 bloody years of Civil War, to end slavery as an institution in this country. And so in that antebellum period, before the Civil War, the familiar images, the safe images, the ones that most of the whites in the country were comfortable with, were those of the mammy and the other kinds of negative stereotypes that sometimes live on in the 20th century in a different form.
Regina Williams teaches history at Cleveland State University. For many older African Americans, she says, the negative images were a way of life.
People who were in positions of power because of money and because of the class privileges associated with having money and being able to own other individuals control those images. And so those were the images that got marketed. I don't think it was something necessarily that Black people were especially proud of.
Professor Williams says the images usually fit into one of several categories.
The Uncle Tom, again, is the faithful servant who doesn't question his oppressors. And so some people suggest he's complicitous in his own oppression. And for the Coons, sort of a buffoonish kind of character, always laughing and clowning for the entertainment of the master class. The mammy, again, like the modern day Aunt Jemima, is there not just with her pancakes, but also taking care of the master's children, cleaning the master's house, very often separated from the African American community, but there again to do the bidding of others in society. And the buck or the brute Negro, sort of there as sort of a threat to civilization as white Americans had come to know it, because this is a man who's aware of his own strength. He's a threat to the virtue of white women. He is someone who has to be kept, if necessarily by force, kept in his place. And so those are the images, again, that we see a lot of when we look at 19th century material before and after the Civil War. So unfortunately, even after slavery is killed off, the images live on.
Not only do the images live on, but some have become hot items. For years, Lawrence ran a collectible shop in Cleveland These days, he sells collectibles over the internet.
I started what was called Rastus's Place, Black Memorabilia and Collectibles in downtown Cleveland. And I named it for the cream of wheat chef, who everybody's familiar with on the box of cream of wheat, of course, named Rastus. And he was a real person, and he only got paid $5 for his photograph in the 1890s by the man that owned the company. And that picture made that company billions of dollars. So he became sort of like my patron saint.
And what type of items could you expect to find in his shop or in his personal collection?
This is a game or toy that would have been played by a child probably in the 1920s or the 1930s. And the name of the game is The Five Nigger Boys. This game involved taking a pop gun, and you would shoot the little boys, and when you shoot them, one of them, they would flip over, and whichever child got the highest score would be the winner of the game. Now, the interesting thing about it is where you have to shoot the child in order to win would be in the head. If you shoot somebody in the head, most likely they're going to die. So you could never produce a game like this at today's day and age. And so you kind of would want to wonder what kind of sick mind would produce something like this and think it was appropriate to give to a child. These are slave shackles from the 1850s, and they're from a plantation in Alabama. These were actually used, and they're really well made. And you push the key all the way up inside. There's a spring mechanism in them. And when you insert the key and turn it, the lock opens. And they're adjustable. You can see little notches there, so they can go from a small wrist to a large wrist. And when you untwist the key, you don't even have to pull all the way out. The shackles are locked. These were actually used to restrain slaves. This is something that's of a historical nature. It's a proof of freedom paper, and a gentleman who was in the Union forces had to carry this around with him to show that he was a free man wherever he went. And you could tell it was folded and it has tape repairs on it, but this is really a neat piece, and I have it framed in archival matting and a frame because I wanted to look sort of artistic. And to me, this is very important documentation of the contribution that Black people made to the history of our country. In connection with this, oftentimes the soldiers would be harassed if they were out of uniform, and sometimes the harassers were the people who wore the white robes and the hoods. And this is an authentic KKK outfit, and it's from the 1924, and it's quite profound, you know, to actually have it in my collection, and they're very hard to come by. And this was worn, and no doubt, on many night rides. In collecting, there's all kind of things you can collect in the field of Black memorabilia, and this happens to be a can of Muhammad Ali's The Champs shaving cream, and also a can of shoe polish that was produced with Muhammad Ali's image on it. And people might want to collect things that were picturing different celebrities. And I will admit that the shaving cream is pretty good because I ran out and I used it up. There's nothing left, so it was good shaving cream. I have not used the shoe polish, however. This is a Raphael Tuck Valentine. It's called a mechanical Valentine because it has a movement to it. And when you drop down the envelope, there's a bouquet of flowers inside of it. And these are very highly sought after by collectors now. And it would be a neat gift to give to somebody for Valentine's Day, even now.